Welcome back to Disturbed Reality. La Barradora is a criminal organization based in Tabasco, Mexico, with ties to larger Mexican cartels. Its name, which translates to the sweeper or the sweeper truck, reflects its role in eliminating rivals and controlling territories through violence. This gang has been involved in a wide range of criminal activities, including drug trafficking, extortion, kidnap, and murder, all of which are common traits of many cartel-affiliated groups in Mexico. Originally, La Barradora emerged as a splinter faction of the Beltran-Leyva cartel after its fragmentation following the death of key leaders. The gang operates mainly in the southern state of Tabasco, but it has extended its influence into neighbouring regions. Its position in the state's criminal landscape is particularly due to its strategic location for drug smuggling routes, which makes it a hotspot for clashes with rival cartels and gangs, including splinter factions of Los Zetas and the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG. La Barradora's key activities are closely linked to drug distribution networks, both local and transnational. Their operations also encompass extorting local businesses and involvement in human trafficking. The violence associated with the gang is part of an ongoing battle for control of key drug trafficking routes, resulting in high homicide rates and widespread fear in the local population. Though smaller in scale compared to national cartels, La Barradora's impact on Tabasco has been significant, leading to an increased focus from federal and local authorities who have launched operations to curb their influence. Law enforcement has made several arrests of gang members, but the group continues to evolve and adapt to the highly competitive and violent nature of Mexico's criminal landscape. Though, despite these arrests, numerous accusations remain of La Barradora being in bed with the local authorities, including the state's prison system as well as the police. Tabasco, in recent months and years, has become an increasingly more violent state. This is also attributed to the arrival of CJNG, who are arguably the most violent cartel in Mexico right now. When entering new territories, much like Los Zetas before them, CJNG are known for deploying shock and awe type tactics to spread fear among rival gangs, as well as law enforcement and the general public. CJNG's propensity for violence has been carried out in the state of Tabasco, primarily against La Barradora, and in recent months, several grim execution videos have been released by the cartel following their ongoing insurgence into Tabasco. CJNG have focused on Tabasco State as well as Chiapas due to their proximity with the Guatemalan border. Both the Sinaloa cartel and CJNG have realised the importance of such states in recent years, as control of the Guatemalan border means they control a large proportion of the drugs coming into Mexico, but more importantly, it gives the ruling cartel control over illegal human trafficking. Most who travel into Mexico from Latin America cross the Guatemalan border before eventually making their way to the USA, and as we know, people smuggling is even more lucrative than the drugs trade. The illegal human trafficking trade has been a primary reason for the rise in violence in both Chiapas and Tabasco, though we will talk about Tabasco again in a moment. While we are talking about CJNG, however, I feel it necessary to talk about some substantial rumours that have been circulating in recent days. As everyone is aware, on the 25th of July 2024, longtime Sinaloa cartel kingpin Ismael Zambada Garcia, aka El Mayo, was arrested by US authorities at a private airfield in El Paso, Texas. Zambada was reportedly lured by Joaquin Guzman Lopez, the son of El Chapo, under false pretenses of looking to buy property in Mexico that led to his arrest. However, both were arrested and are expected to be tried in the USA. Rumours then began to circulate that Joaquin was in on the operation and that it was a setup to hand over El Mayo to US authorities. While some well-known narco journalists disputed these claims, despite the bizarre circumstances of the arrest, the theory that the arrest was a setup and betrayal by Los Chapitos was all but confirmed a few weeks later in September, when Mayito Flaco, the son of Ismael Zambada, declared war on Los Chapitos. Several firefights took place throughout the state of Sinaloa, and in particular in the city of Culiacan. Videos flooded social media, showcasing sicarios belonging to Mayito Flaco flooding the streets and making their presence known. Even radio commands were uploaded to social media, and in one, a high-ranking security chief within Mayito Flaco's faction was captured saying the following: "Don't fight with the government. Anything that smells like they belong to Chapo Guzman, kill them." The violence lasted a couple of days, and has been simmering on and off ever since. When the civil war broke out, many asked the question, what does this mean for the Sinaloa cartel? Will they go the way of the Gulf cartel before them, and ultimately fragment into various different factions, therefore no longer being a united cartel? That question still remains, and will be answered as time goes on. However, on the 15th of October 2024, news began to circulate online of an unholy alliance. An alliance between former enemies, and should this be true, Los Chapitos may have gained an advantage in the civil war. During the first week of October, a meeting allegedly took place at this ranch in the picture on screen. That meeting was between envoys from Aldias Flores Silva, aka El Jardinero, the right-hand man of El Mencho, and representatives of Los Chapitos. A trusted man of El Jardinero, simply known as H8, met with one of the closest friends of Ivan Archibaldo Guzman Salazar, one of the two sons of El Chapo who are still free, the other being Jesus Alfredo Guzman. The meeting was said to have taken place to form an alliance between CJNG and Los Chapitos, as well as strategizing how to defeat Mayito Flaco. At the Pacheco's ranch in Nayarit, El Jardinero's envoys agreed with the representative of Los Chapitos to collaborate with men, money, weapons, territories, and contacts. Cartel Jalisco is currently focused on ousting the Zambada faction from Zacatecas, Nayarit, and Chiapas, while Los Chapitos are looking to consolidate their control in Sinaloa, Durango, Sonora, and Chihuahua. The pact is rumoured to include an alliance to jointly fight in these territories. When Mayito Flaco declared war on Los Chapitos over a month ago, the brothers Ivan and Jesus began to strategize their next move, one of which was to negotiate with CJNG boss El Mencho, as they now had a common enemy. Cartel Jalisco of course have been struggling in defeating the Grupo Fletcher's faction belonging to Mayito Flaco in Zacatecas. Before entering negotiations, rumours indicate that El Mencho requested a guarantee from Los Chapitos to measure their seriousness. One of the brothers had to move to a safe location in Jalisco under the custody of El Mencho's men without Los Chapitos security. Los Chapitos agreed, and for several weeks now, Jesus Alfredo Guzman has been apparently living in a property owned by El Mencho in Jalisco, accompanied by two of his most trusted team members, as a sign of the seriousness with El Mencho. To sum up the snakes and ladders and Hunger Game nature of the drug trade, back in August 15, 2016, Jesus Alfredo Guzman Salazar was captured to gunmen belonging to CJNG after dining at a fancy Puerto Vallarta restaurant known as La Leche. It was largely thanks to Ismael Zambada that Jesus and his associates were released unharmed. Fast forwards 8 years, it seems that Los Chapitos are now in bed with El Mencho and CJNG, marking one of the unlikeliest alliances in cartel history. I understand that this story was initially broken by a group of journalists known as Illicit Investigations. Give them a follow on Twitter if you can, they have a very informative account. Mayito Zambada's faction have proved to be a thorn in the side of CJNG for years, and have really been taking the fight to Los Chapitos during the early stages of the Sinaloan Civil War, but combined, they may now have the firepower to finally wipe the Zambada faction off the map. We could be heading for a new level of violence, with CJNG finally in the mix, and ultimately, such cartel warfare is rarely kept between criminals and criminals alone. Sadly, should this be the case, an increase in violence between the aforementioned factions, innocent people will also be dragged into this unstable situation, much like was the case with the Golfo Zeta War all those years ago. Another factor to consider, should this alliance indeed be real, how long does it last? Should they indeed defeat Mayito Flaco, will they then start warring with each other? I ask the question as usually such partnerships do not last forever, especially if one is weaker than the other. Ultimately, an alliance could possibly mean a new level of violence that we have yet seen in the drug war, though we will of course cover that should we get to that point. What I am certain of is that we will see some horrible videos from this conflict. Despite the potential alliance, Cartel Jalisco will still have their own problems to deal with, however, notably in the state of Michoacán against the likes of Carteles Unidos, El Migaladas, La Nueva Familia Michoacana, to name a few of the gangs that they are fighting in the state, as well as in Tabasco against La Barradora. In relation to the ongoing conflict with La Barradora, a graphic new clip was released, showcasing the levels of savagery that both cartels are more than willing to go to get the upper hand and to shock people. We will also cover another clip of unknown origin, also appearing to be linked with CJNG. But nevertheless, what happens in the actual videos? The first clip, as mentioned, came out of Tabasco State. The video itself is 1 minute and 49 seconds in length. In regards to the victim and the backstory as to why he found himself in that position, it's kind of up in the air and there is conflicting information. One story is that he was a member or affiliate of La Barradora before then turning his back on them and joining CJNG. And the contrasting story is essentially the other way round, him instead being a member of Cartel Jalisco who collaborated with La Barradora. Either way, it seems that the victim was accused of being treacherous, regardless of the side he was repping. As you play the clip, you are met with the sight of a victim who is kneeling on the ground, with his hands tied behind his back and his mouth has been gagged, as well as his eyes being covered. Standing behind him are at least 11 heavily armed sicarios, all of which have their faces concealed, dressed in black and are heavily armed, though none seem to be wearing CJNG logos on their clothing. The quality of the footage is also pretty good for a cartel video. It's been shot at the dead of night in a forest. In the first few seconds of the video, a sicario reads out a brief statement, essentially your usual cartel warning. A sicario, who is standing behind the victim, then moves closer to him before drawing a combat knife against the side of the man's neck. He then begins to viciously slice back and forth at the carotid artery area, and instantly blood leaks down the man's chest. He grimaces and you hear slight groans, but the gag he is wearing seems tight, rendering him unable to scream. Blood then sprays down at a rapid rate onto the man's legs, completely staining his black jeans, and the blood is so luminous due to the light that it looks like a horror movie. Blood then squirts out in different directions from the wound, before the victim then buckles to the ground. The killer cuts, or at least attempts to cut, all the way around the man's neck prior to him collapsing. Once collapsed to the ground, as you would expect, the hitman continues the beheading process, though he squats in front of the victim, so the view is obscured, but you still see the man's legs moving and twitching on the ground in pain, as his head is being taken off its shoulders. A different sicario then stands on the victim's legs to stop him moving. You can't see much of the beheading at this point, but you hear the horrible wheezing sounds of the dying man. You also hear the stabbing, slashing, and hacking noises that the knife is making, and at one point you even hear the spine crunch as the sicario is cutting through it. He finally then completes the beheading and briefly puts the severed head onto the torso. The hitman then starts to fiddle with the head, and initially it's hard to make out what he is doing. He then removes the blindfold and gag from the severed head. He then takes his blade and he cuts around the face of the severed head, as if he is about to begin a flaying. He then smashes the head with the knife a couple of times, before he then seems to have second thoughts. He seems to give up on the flaying. He shouts some cartel rhetoric, and then he drives the blade into the chest of the deceased victim. The video ends there. The next video, I have to be honest, I know zero of the context, though it seems to involve CJNG, whether that be the victim or the perpetrators. I also don't know when this was released, but I'm assuming it's relatively recent, as I'm sure I'd have run into this before now, especially due to its unique nature. Lastly, I have no idea where in Mexico this was filmed. It's described as the first Cartel flamethrower video, though this claim is a little exaggerated, but regardless, the cruelty displayed in this video is still certainly unique, even by Cartel standards. The video itself is actually very short, at only 15 seconds in length. It was shot once again at night, seemingly in the middle of nowhere. Some of the details of the video are hard to make out, as it's partially covered by a large emoji, though you still see more than enough. As you play the clip, your senses are immediately overwhelmed with utter barbarism, both visually and audibly. A victim has been stripped naked, and he has been strung up and hung upside down. He looks like a human piñata. Two sicarios can be seen torturing the victim with fire. They are using some sort of flammable spray cans, which they are essentially using as makeshift flamethrowers. Two sicarios roast the man as he screeches in utter agony. He's also spinning and twisting and turning from the rope as he tries his best to get away from the flames. You already see that his body is red raw due to the extreme heat. Juxtaposed to the victim's screams is the hysterical laughter from the sicarios involved. The screaming is incredibly loud, but the laughter is actually just as loud, if not laugher. They're enjoying tormenting and torturing the victim. This one comes with a headphone warning, to say the least. I actually think that the victim is a member of CJNG having listened to the audio, as one of the sicarios says Pinche Mencho. While Pinche has different meanings and can be used in different contexts, it can be used as an insult. Regardless, the video essentially just shows the victim being roasted with the flames that are being thrown out by the spray cans. I'm not sure what the cans contained, but it certainly wasn't deodorant. The flames were way too big. Being an idiot in my childhood, I know what flames from a deodorant can look like. But anyway, that is the video. I hope you enjoyed it, if you can enjoy this sort of content. The coming weeks will be very interesting surrounding the Sinaloan Civil War, and should the alliance between CJNG and Los Chapitos be true, we could be in for a brutal winter. I must stress, this hasn't been officially confirmed, though the reports are making the rounds, and usually there is no smoke without fire. The kidnapping aside, Cartel Jalisco's main beef with the Sinaloa cartel has been against Ismael Zambada's faction of the cartel, now of course belonging to his son, Mayito Flaco. Ultimately, it makes sense. It's a relationship of convenience. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, and all of that. We will see how things transpire. But anyway guys, that is it. I apologise that this video is a bit shorter. I kind of got this one out last minute because of the news that was breaking all over social media about the potential alliance. So I thought I would make a video kind of based around it because it is big news, if you can call it news. We'll see what happens in the next few weeks or so. But again, if it is true, then yeah, this could very much, it's going to shake up the cartel world without a doubt. And of course cause violence along with that. But yeah, anyway guys, if you could, smash the like, follow me on Twitter, check out the pinned comment, social media's there, my boxing channel where we talk about fights and, you know, upcoming boxing matches, my Twitch channel where we've been playing through Silent Hill 2. Check it out guys. But anyway, as always, stay safe, and I'll catch you on the next one.